We begin with breaking news out of South Korea. Anti-corruption investigators have entered the home of suspended President Yoon Suk-yeol. They have an arrest warrant against him issued this week over his attempt to enforce martial law a month ago. Around 3,000 police officers have surrounded his residence, facing off with his supporters who tried to block them. Our correspondent Jack Barton joins us live from Seoul. Jack, what's the latest?
Yeah, that's right. You mentioned that they have 1 week to execute this warrant. It expires on Monday, and they've been waiting for the right moment with those big groups of protesters and very large demonstrations in support of President Yoon expected around his residence on the weekend. The arresting officers from the Corruption Investigation Office and the police figured probably the early hours of this morning would be the only opportunity they had, so they took it. However, they still faced hundreds of protesters before they got inside. 20 officers from the Anti-Corruption Office, 70 police officers outside, 120 arresting police in total, but backed up by 2,800 police officers on the street to try and keep the crowd at bay. We thought they would get some resistance from the presidential security team. They have so far blocked attempts to search premises in the past, but what we're now hearing is there may be a military unit or members of a military unit. We assume from the defense, the Capital Defense Command inside, stopping these arresting officers from detaining President Yoon. So the standoff at the moment, we're told, is actually between military soldiers supporting President Yoon and these arresting officers. But if they can bring in more reinforcements, if they can take President Yoon away, the plan is to take him for questioning at a center just south of the capital. This arrest warrant is because President Yoon has refused the last attempts or the voluntary request for questioning, and after that they will detain him at a detention center also south of Seoul for about 48 hours. And if they want to hold him longer than that, they're going to have to apply for another arrest warrant. And of course, this is all separate from the impeachment investigation that's going on through the Constitutional Court. As you mentioned, this is about treason and insurrection charges, which are separate, which have a very, very stiff sentence if he is ultimately found guilty. Life sentence with or without hard labor and a potential death sentence.
Jack, you're giving us a lot. I'd like to unpack it a little bit. How does this look with a wider look at recent Korean history?
This whole thing is so unusual and unexpected. You know, the fact that we had this very brief bout of martial law. I remember at the time when it happened, none of us could even really believe this was happening in modern-day South Korea. And even though it only lasted 5.5 hours and everybody was saying, oh, well, you know, South Korea has passed the test on this, they weren't able to implement it, you can still feel the shockwaves running through the system. And it's very clear this is going to take a few years at least to clear out of the system, because the Constitutional Court will still have to sign off on this impeachment or reject the impeachment. It has 180 days to do so. If it does vote to impeach President Yoon, there's going to be a snap election. The man who will run for president, most likely run for president, also has a number of corruption cases pending against him, including an appeal. So there's likely to be attempts to impeach him by the opposition party, by what is now the ruling party, and of course, in the very unlikely event that the ruling party manages to stay in power, and I just can't see how that could happen at the moment, you know, the controversy will drag on. So everybody hoped, I think, that this would pass over quickly, but this is something that has happened in one night that will no doubt have reverberations across South Korea for a few years to come at least.
Absolutely, Jack, and I'm interested in how this will drag on. What are the next plays in the political playbook in the Republic of Korea?
Well, we have this, the questioning now going on for the charges of insurrection and abuse of power. These do not have presidential immunity, so this is why they're able to go and arrest President Yoon Suk-yeol. Well, they're attempting to do so at the moment. The first such arrest warrant ever executed for a sitting president. And this is on the one track. And on the other track, we have the impeachment going on in the Constitutional Court. And we're going to have the second preliminary hearing today, in which the National Assembly will put forward their list of witnesses that they would like to bring forward for testimony, and in theory President Yoon's legal team would do so as well. But in the first hearing they didn't put forward any list, and it seemed what they were trying to do was stall for time, and the expectation is today in that court proceeding they might stall for time as well. The Constitutional Court has made it clear they want to speed up this process, shorter than the 180 days they have to look over it, because of the implications it is having for the country and because it is so serious. But President Yoon, a former chief prosecutor himself who knows constitutional law inside out, seeming to think that dragging this process out, stalling for time, is the best way forward at the moment.
Thanks, Jack. Jack Barton for us in Seoul.